Hi guys, Top Chef here, and today I want to talk about Valley of Memory, the free story DLC that recently dropped for Assassin's Creed Mirage. Just a quick heads up to anyone watching, this will contain story spoilers because I want to talk properly about the narrative and how I feel that this DLC worked so well. This isn't a technical breakdown and it's not a systems heavy review. It's more about the story, the tone, and what Valley of Memory adds to Mirage overall. So yeah, let's get into it. The first thing that stands out for me is the setting. Al-Ula itself, it is genuinely beautiful. You've got towering sandstone cliffs, carved tombs, quiet settlements, and huge stretches of desert that are feeling ancient and untouched. But more than just looking good, this setting feels intentional by Ubisoft. This is far from Basim's day-to-day life in Baghdad. Instead of crowded streets and constant movement, Al-Ula is slower and more open. There's space between locations, long stretches of silence, and moments where the game lets things breathe. That changes the pace, and it works really well for this kind of story. The scenes aren't rushed, the emotional moments are given room to land and without being interrupted by constant activity. And this brings me on to the writing in Valley of Memory. It is easily one of the strongest points of the DLC. The main story revolves around Nimlot, the son of Al-Ula. That was Basim's first ever assassination target in the main game, if you can remember. One of the smartest decisions that Ubisoft Bordeaux made was going back and adding Nimlot into the original Al-Ula cutscene. That changes it to now being canon. It makes a big difference. It gives Mirage something that Assassin's Creed has been struggling with for a while now, and that is follow through. The actions actually matter. The characters don't just disappear once their role is done. Now, don't get me wrong, Nimlot isn't a world-ending villain. He's driven by grief and anger and the consequences of Basim's actions, which keeps the conflict grounded and personal than rather it being exaggerated like previous stories in Assassin's Creed. And one of the real strengths of the writing is the emotional core of the DLC. And it's not Nimlot, it's Basim's father. And Basim discovers that his dad is still alive, but he's also suffering from Alzheimer's. And he doesn't recognize Basim at all. He doesn't recognize him as his son, as someone even familiar. And those scenes are handled with a lot of restraint. And there is no big speeches, no forced emotional beats, just this quiet, uncomfortable moment that feel painfully real. Through Basim's dad, we also learn more about Basim's mother. He recalls meeting her in the bazaar, a young woman brought from a land far to the north, across the sea. This moment matters, but the DLC never stops to explain it. It doesn't spell anything out for you or heavily lean on the lore. It trusts the audience to understand this significant moment without overdoing it. Rather than turning Basim's story into a pure mythology, Valley of Memory keeps it grounded in people, relationships, loss, and that's why it works so well. And it's through learning stuff with Basim's dad that the title is where it really starts to land. On one side we have Basim is piecing together parts of his past, learning things about his family that he never fully understood. On the other hand, his father is losing his memories entirely. Those two ideas sit side by side throughout the DLC without ever directly stating. The game doesn't push the symbolism or draw attention to it, it just simply lets it exist. Because of that, it never feels clever or forced. The title doesn't feel symbolic for the sake of it, it just feels accurate. The ending of Valley of Memory is where it is most emotional, because it is quiet, and because of this, it is very effective. Basim's father walks alone in the desert after saying his goodbyes. There is no confirmation of what happens to him, but the implication is clear. The game doesn't feel the need to say it out loud to us. There's no dramatic music, There's no final conversation, just silence, distance and acceptance, and it's beautiful in its restraint, and it lingers long after the DLC has ended. And for me and many other fans, this is where we truly felt something special. And on a personal level, I definitely had a tear in my eye. Before I give my final verdict on the DLC, I just wanted to talk about how it actually plays. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, Mirage is still Mirage mechanically, but Valley of Memory adds just enough to make Al-Ula feel distinct and different. The ambush mechanism is one of my favourite additions to the game. They make moving through the region feel unpredictable and reinforce this idea that us as the player and Basim are never completely safe. Now, that being said, I do also think that they are underused. It's a solid idea that could have been pushed further with more frequency and more variety, something similar to what we saw in Claws of Awaji. Now, parkour also remains one of Mirage's best strengths, and Al-Ula's layout works really well with it. Movement feels smooth and deliberate, especially in vertical spaces. And also with the return of the black box missions, it's also a big positive. They encourage planning and acting out multiple approaches, and the replayability is massive. Things Assassin's Creed has always done best when it slows down and lets players think. Something that moved across from Mirage into the DLC, and it's one of the DLC's biggest weaknesses, is combat. It still remains one of the weakest parts of Mirage's entire experience. It lacks weight and flexibility, and when stealth breaks down, encounters feel stiff and rather than intense. The map design can also feel uneven. Some areas feel compact and busy, while others are wide open but lightly used. It doesn't ruin the experience, but it is noticeable. And while some side content feels purposeful, some collectibles and activities come across as padding, more about extending playtime than adding anything meaningful. Now, don't get me wrong, the DLC isn't the perfect DLC. It still has a lot of Mirage's weaknesses, and some do carry over, but what this expansion does well, it does really well. It gives Basim more depth, strengthens the overall narrative of Mirage, and tells a smaller, quieter story than Assassin's Creed has usually attempted. And that restraint is exactly why this works. It doesn't try to be loud and dramatic. It just trusts the story it's telling. And honestly, Assassin's Creed could use more of that. Let me know what your thoughts are of Valley of Memory in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.